Set. 4, 3, 1.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Sunday Morning Quarterback. Today, we are four pastors who love ministry, leadership, and sports. We have our two unofficial co-hosts here. John is coming all the way from the beach. John, how's the weather today?
It's raining, but it looks like it's going to clear up. Going to be headed out to the beach, wrap this up quickly.
Nice. Paul's coming from Brainerd Baptist Studio. Paul, how's it going today over there?
Doing well. It's hot, but we're indoors, so that's
doing hot. VBS day one is in the books. Dad, you got VBS in about 2 hours. You ready?
2 hours. It's calm before the storm. Am I ready? No, but we're going to do it anyway.
Calm before the storm. Well, you know, Adam, our other co-host, he gets so big that sometimes we can't fall in on his calendar. So whenever we have an opening, it's just without fail, these two guys. And just for those of you out there, like, we have such a rich Temple history. You've probably picked up on it. But anytime you get any former TTU alum or friends in the same room together, man, it's fun, and it can get wild quick. So, fellas, let's jump in, and let's just take the people behind the scenes on what we talk about when we're together on group chats. We're going to start off with some sports, and we are going to start with the one and only Dame Dollar. Finally, after many years of people lamenting him being stuck in Portland, he has waved the flag and said he will be traded. So I'm going to start with the obvious first. Paul, where would you like to see Damian Lillard traded to?
The Miami Heat.
Yeah.
Where else would I not want that to happen? That would be fantastic. I mean, not to say that we're not doing okay as it is anyway. I mean, it was hard to watch, you know, basically them get slammed pretty hard in the finals. But I mean, I can't ask for more from the Miami Heat. They've been doing awesome, but I mean, that would be great. I don't mind us running shop again with the Miami Heat having Lillard on there. That's for sure. But I mean, that's one man's pipe dream and wish. I know that's more than likely not going to happen. That's for sure. But you know, that'd be nice. But that's my take from my little small corner of the world, because I'm a Heat fan. So that's what I'm going to say.
To my knowledge, he's saying he will only go to the Heat. So he's not giving him many options. My question
there you go. I'm not going to be here like, oh man, I've been keeping up with everything in this number. We've had VBS. June has been nuts. And if anybody's know anything about church life during the month of June, it's crazy. Especially where our circles are, at least.
Yep.
So if that's what he's been saying, then Pat Riley, Spoelstra, roll out the red carpet, make them Heat Nation, bro. That's how it needs to be.
Yep. Gus Hernandez is still shouting for victory here, and he wants to come there. But the question is, how much is Portland? If I'm Portland, I'm like, hey, you got to give me some. You got to give me Tyler Hero. You got to give me Bam Adebayo. I don't want any just future 10 draft picks. No, you got to give me some assets. John, what do you think? How do you think it'll shake out?
I think they might send Tyler and Bam that way,
wow.
And I think that would be a mistake.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of replication with Jimmy Butler and Damian Lillard's game. I don't know if they coexist very well. I think Bam and Tyler, they both complement his game, Butler's game, so well that I think it would be a mistake. I know he wants to get there. I don't think he will get there. I think somebody else will have to put together pieces. And I'm not sure at this point who. I would love for the Hornets to make a play, but let's be honest, we don't have any pieces to trade. So that's where we're at.
Yep. That's a true statement. Dad, what do you think?
I think they're going to try to get him to Miami. I don't think it's going to work. They want too much. Pat Riley knows what he's doing. He's not going to give up the farm. So I think they're going to try, and that's going to fail. And I think he would do great in Milwaukee. Ooh. I think if you put him with the Greek Freak, they know their roles, their positions. He's already a proven star. Dame can go there and find his place where he doesn't have to carry the team. And then, of course, the Greek Freak can, not have to carry the whole team on his back. So I think that is a great pairing inside out. And so I'd love to see that happen. But to be honest with you, I'm not sure what's going to happen. Portland, they won a lot. I think 4 number 1 picks plus a couple role players. That's a lot. And so I don't know any top-notch team that has all those things that's willing to give up that much for Dame Lillard, who's really starting that fourth quarter of his career. So it's going to be interesting to watch this chicken play, but I don't think Portland's afraid to go ahead and put him wherever suits best for their team.
Yep, I agree. I think with what John said, you can easily make a mistake by trading away. What's everybody say? Heat culture. Bam is heat culture.
Pat Riley's not going to do it.
No. Now, if they say 4 first rounds and a Tyler Hero, I would consider it. I wouldn't give up Bam. That's too much. And they also lost
Tyler.
They also lost that. He kind of regressed, though. Like, he didn't really do anything in the playoffs. You know, I would cut bait with him. But they also lost that little point guard to the Lakers. I mean, he didn't really show up in the finals. So it's just a matter of how much you have to give up. Dad, another name that's floating out there is somebody who's on the back end of their career, but it's already pulling the eject button, is James Harden. Where do you see him landing?
Man, that's a good question. I actually think that he's probably going to go to the Clippers, or he may actually stay with Philadelphia for a little while, but I don't see him playing. So I think that there's a good chance that they could start the season with him still on the team, but not playing, and then kind of watching how things play out.
Yeah, James Harden, the one person other than Kyrie, I just wouldn't want on my team at any cost. It's him, and he got old. He got old quick. John, another one that happened. What was your reaction to Chris Paul going to the Warriors?
Well, I mean, that pretty much ensures they're not going to win a championship next year because Chris Paul just doesn't get it done. And I'm not trying to be a jerk. It's just they've had great teams and they've lost. I don't know. I think he conflicts with the culture they have. I think him and Draymond Green, it's going to be interesting to watch.
At some point.
Be the boss. It's good. It's going to explode. It just is a matter of time.
Yep. And, you know, John says that as a 336 native who, you know, he went to Wake Forest, and they're that enemy territory. But, you know.
Don't take him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Jordan Poole, man, they cut him loose pretty quick. So NFL free agency is moving. But the talk of the town has been baseball. Now, Paul, you're from Miami, and I know all Miami people are Yankee fans, but I think I see an A on that hat. Have you switched over to the Atlanta Braves?
Yeah, I have very much, and I'm a very happy fan. Look at
yes,
Jay
sir.
I'm already shaking your heads. But yeah, they've been doing
Tell
great.
us about your Braves, what you're seeing.
Well, for one, just the backstory on it is the fact that, you know, I've been to more Braves games now than I've been to Marlins games, unfortunately, even though I went to 2 World Series with the Marlins, which is great. And so the odds of me going to Yankee Stadium, that's not going to probably happen. So, I mean, the closest thing that I have to enjoy is the Braves. Now, anybody who's watching baseball knows that the Braves are absolutely killing it. I mean, it is out of control, not only from individual spotlights that you can, you know, make sure that you can look at. I mean, from Olsen to Acuna Jr., like they've been tearing it up. I mean, it is ridiculous. I'm pretty sure that Olsen at one point was doing better than Ohtani, which is ridiculous. And those 2 guys are doing really, really, really good.
Let's not get too carried away there.
Oh, I'm serious.
Come on, man. He's on the mound too.
I understand, which is a whole different. I get that, but in terms of hitting, like they're both. In terms of hitting, they're both in the same place. But man, I don't know what else you can ask for. I mean, you got guys that are all-stars all over the team. You got, like I said, Olsen and Acuna doing fantastic. I mean, the guys to be there, to have their record of where they have right now going into the All-Star weekend that's impressive. I don't care where you are in baseball. That's really good baseball that you're watching from them.
Yep, I agree, Dad.
I'm with the guys. Atlanta is tearing it up. They just humiliated Tampa, and I've been watching Tampa. That, you know, from the very beginning, they started off fast and they played good ball, and all of a sudden they ran into Atlanta, and I think it's like they went into like 7-8 games in a row, maybe continuing on of losses. So, and then watch out for the Mets. They're starting to play better. And you started this segment with Atlanta, New York. I hate to say this. I hate to say it because it's always fun to have a villain, but New York they feel like the Cowboys, where they have some big pop. They got some stars.
Yep.
And for the last 15, 20 years, it seems like, oh, is this going to be the year? And they play good, but they always kind of fizzle at the end. And so I think I'm going to see the same thing this year, where you always keep an eye on the Yankees because they got enough pop and sizzle. But I just don't think. I think Houston's going to get back into it. So I think New York's going to do what they've always done every year. And it pains me to say it that way because I know what you guys are thinking. But that's kind of
Cowboy
what
Nation.
I think New York is. And this is just remember this. I think the Braves are going to rock and roll. However, watch out for the Dodgers because I think somebody from the Angels may be getting traded. And I got a feeling that he could go to the Dodgers. If he goes to the Dodgers, then we have ourselves a ball game between them and the Braves to see what happens.
I think he's a closet Dodger fan. He always loves talking about the Dodgers. And, how can you have Ohtani and then Mike Trout, and you can't even make the playoffs? Like, they're just cursed franchise. But John's coming up there from Orioles country, Nationals country. John, what do you see in
Good ball. Good ball.
MLB landscape?
Yeah. Well, I think if anybody believed that the Braves were going to be solid at the end of last season when they seemed to depart a lot of different people from a lot of different places, you were like, man, it's like rebuilding mode. No one foresaw the change in the direction trajectory that they're on. And if they said they did, they're lying, and they shouldn't be trusted. And the Yankees have the money to go and buy the players, but what we're seeing is, across the sports, is those teams that have the money, Dallas Cowboys, Lakers, and the Yankees, just to name a couple. The most talent doesn't always win, and so I think it gets down to a point of good coaching and good teamwork, and personality conflicts are at a minimum, and the ability to cheer one another on. I mean, it is a team game, and so you're gonna watch it come out of the break. And I know the Yankees just got Casey just signed on as a new hitting coach, so it's a pretty big change for them. But I don't suspect that it'll be turned around in the first month or two out of the break. So we shall see. But I think the Braves are going to ride it all the way in. I don't foresee any kind of hang up. It's not in the bag, but they're going to storm into the playoffs.
There's no injuries. They'll be good, man.
Well, it's definitely a World Series win or bust this year. The Braves fans are living in the glory days. Adam comes in here strutting his feathers about the Braves, and so we'll see if they can keep it up. Hey, John, we'll stick with you.
Watch that Angel trade. There's a lot of talk of him being traded.
Yeah.
And Dodgers, they got a lot of money.
Talking about Trout?
No.
Ohtani. Well, man, they'd have to give up something to get that guy because, he's talented. But hey, let's shift gears real quick to football. Football's right around the corner. Preseason camp and all that is coming down the pike. John, here's the question. What NFL storyline are you most looking forward to finding out the answer to or watching going into next year?
It's got to be the battle of the newly drafted quarterbacks, right? Like, is it Florida just offload one? Alabama. I mean, there's got to be who made the right choice, right? Like, there's not a whole lot of controversy. I don't feel like there's a lot of chaos that's going on. Ray Lewis is no longer in the league, so he's not in a murder trial or anything. So you're looking around, you're like, what's going to be the narrative right now? It's which team picked the franchise quarterback, and I think the Panthers are a leg up from what I'm hearing in training camp. I think they made a solid selection. Pretty excited about that. Any barring injuries, then we're good to go. And I think it continues to build on the narrative now that we can finally squash that you need a 6'3" quarterback in the NFL. I mean, at this point, you have to start looking around and going, no, you can be 5'11" or 6 foot and do really well and play really well. So that would be my first shot. And then second, you got to wonder if Wilson's going to bounce back. It's just, it's maybe that secondary story, the Broncos, what's going on. I don't know. I mean, you read all the reports, you see all the stuff. You're like, man, what were you into to clear your head and regain momentum? If it can be done, I'm not sure, but people will be watching. And if it doesn't sort out, and even if it does, there's no win for him, I feel like. So that's going to be a major talking point, I believe.
And being in that division, man, like, I almost wonder if Sean is going to go in the opposite direction. Everybody knows him for offense, but if he turns it into a Seattle, it's like, okay, all these high-powered teams, let's do defense and run the ball. Do what worked for you in Seattle. So definitely a good one there. Dad, what storyline are you watching going into the NFL?
Well, I've got a couple of them. I want to watch to see how the Jets do. I want to see how Aaron Rodgers is going to take this franchise, this pedestrian, not even mediocre franchise, and see if they can do something with it. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Here's another side note before I get to my main meat. But the little side note is, and it's just, I'm curious to watch what happened with the Raiders. The Raiders seem to be a dumpster fire. I don't like their coach one bit. And I think what they did with their quarterback last year was just sad. And so they're trying to make all these moves, and I really think that place is going to be volatile. That head coach is he's just an angry dude, man. And so I think it's going to be, man, with that owner and the coach, there's nobody there. You got a diva wide receiver, so it's going to be fun to watch that place implode as they have to face San Diego, they have to face the Chiefs, and they have to face the Broncos. I think the Broncos are going to be better. So I think they're going to get trashed, and there's going to be a lot of speculation come out there. But of course, I think the main thing that I'm going to be watching is the two powerhouse juggernauts, two amazing defenses, amazing offenses, great young quarterbacks. Did I say that with a straight face? Anyways, I really believe that you're going to see a major struggle. I really believe with all my heart, we pay attention. Dallas' defense is legit, and they've got some young studs that most people haven't heard. They've added some other big names, and so I just think that that's going to be a collision course. On a honest note, do I think Dallas is going to be able to overtake? I don't know. But I do think that they're going to be able to go toe-to-toe with Philly and with the Niners, and it's going to come down to Dak. But so I'm watching the Cowboys, and I know I say it this year, but I promise you, come back to this time. If Dak fails this year with all the talent that they have, waving the white flag. Waving the white flag on Dak.
Can you define?
Dak, only on Dak.
Can you
Waving the
define?
white flag.
Can you define fails?
Comes up short when we need him the most.
Okay.
That's a fail.
Yeah.
If we lose Niners, 28-24, and it wasn't because of Dak, then that's not a fail to me. I'm not expecting him to be, top 5 quarterback. He does not need to be the reason why we lose.
Let me jump in here for a moment.
John.
Just
Give
to
him truth
split
serum
the Krajowskis, because we're under the Dallas delusion, because it's that time of year again. July moving into August. The Dallas delusion begins to hover in overhead. No one's following that because Dak is going to fail you. He is going to lose the game. He is the reincarnate Tony Romo with more athleticism, and it's just going to happen. So I mark this down, timestamp it. We'll come back here. We'll get Joseph to drag it out of the archives, and we'll say, hey, this is not the year. Defense will carry the team. Without a doubt, will carry the team. They'll go into the playoffs, and Dak will let you down, and it'll be on to the next guy.
John says that with so many years of, I can feel the pain of Redskin. I'm not allowed to say that anymore. Redskin pain in
Doesn't
years.
exist.
And not anymore, because he's cleared the conscience and moved on to the next relationship. God. But the only thing that gives me a little hope is that Dak is a great underdog. I think McCarthy.
There you go.
McCarthy was like, okay, Kellen Moore was trying to make him a Lamborghini, and it's like, whoa. There's nothing wrong with a Toyota Corolla, okay? It can be efficient. He's going to take the ball out of his hands, instead of, middle of the pack Dak. If he can just be consistent and let him hand off the ball more and lean on the defense and be a la Russell Wilson for the Seahawks, and instead of making 35 throws a game, maybe let's make him like 28, 27. Give him some checkdowns, play smart. I think you had opposing philosophies last year. And here's the thing. Dak just has to have awareness. You don't feel like you got to meet up to that $40 million contract. Just be you. Be what got you here. Be consistent. Who cares if you're not Mahomes? You're not a top 7 guy. You're a top 10. You're a number 10, and that's fine. You can be number 10 and ride your way to a Super Bowl. Just got to be smart. Got to be smart and be within your parameters. But I'm going to set my friend Paul up for this one because I know this is where he's going to take it. Paul, what do you think is going to be the verdict, or what are you looking forward to going into that next year with your boy, Tua?
Man, I just hope he makes it out to the field.
Yep.
That's where I'm at with that guy, man. Dude, it was, I mean, I think it was right around this time of the year when we were talking about it, or maybe in the middle of it, like the Dolphins were just clicking on all cylinders. It was really neat, really fun to watch, man. They were doing really, really well. And they were making some strides by upsetting some teams that I didn't think they were going to do that, and coming back from behind and upsetting those teams, which is great. But we'll see. I feel for the guy. I mean, he got injured pretty bad, and you saw some pretty scary moments last year from it all. So him walking out to the field and being there and doing something, I'm okay with that. We'll see, man. Look, I'm not gonna be here and sit here and be like, man, I checked all the stuff of what's gonna be happening and this, that, and the other. I haven't. So just go Dolphins, and let's see what happens.
There you go. Hey, and you know, I would have never guessed this, but the biggest Dolphins fan we've met this so far is Shane Pruitt, man. He's like a diehard, like listening to podcasts. And so he's like, y'all have me on about midseason and Tua going to be dicing you up. And so we're going to have Shane back on and come see. But that's what I'm watching. I like Tua too. But man, that coach, he's a solid coach. So he's gonna make him look good. Their backup looked pretty good in the playoffs. I mean, he was competitive. But I think the one storyline I'm watching going into this NFL season is Josh Allen. You've got Mahomes, and it was Mahomes and Allen competing. And then out of nowhere, Dad's boy, Joe Burrow, comes into the scene. And it's almost like Josh Allen. It's like Josh Allen is playing third fiddle now. And, you know, you can't get over the hump, and they got the D end, and then he got hurt, and it didn't work this year. And so how does Allen respond? Did they get a running game? Did they get stuck in this like lull that they're in, and do they regress? Talk about Stephon Diggs coming into camp late and a little controversy, and does he want to move? So that's what I'm watching. I'm watching Tua. And then the other thing I'm watching is, are we going to see, is this going to be the year that the Chargers quarterback, what's his name, Dad? Chargers quarterback. The heir apparent. You know who I'm talking about. The boy wonder that everybody's like, man, you get on this show and they just slip your mind. The quarterback from Oregon. Justin Herbert.
Herbert.
That looks like such a rookie right now. Justin Herbert. Is he gonna ascend?
Like me, bro.
Is he gonna
like that?
It's off season. I haven't been keeping up with my quarterbacks. Is Herbert going to ascend into Mahomes and Allen and Joe Burrow territory? Because everybody's been saying he is. He is kind of like Andrew Luck when he came in, and they're high praises. But here's the thing. He's got a new offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, somebody who we know a lot about, who likes trick plays, and he can dial it up. But Kellen calls plays. He doesn't call a philosophy and concept. And so, you know, he's got that coach that holds him back too. So that's the other.
I have a question for you, Joseph.
All right.
Let's go around the horn in order. Who's winning that division? Going in order.
Ooh,
you got Miami, you got the Jets, you got Buffalo, you got New England.
Ooh.
Buffalo's going to win that division.
Buffalo.
Miami,
Jets.
Jets.
I go Jets.
The Jets.
They're going to come down to earth. No, then I'll go Miami, and then New England's going to.
I hope the same thing happens with the Jets. I can't stand the Jets.
Nah.
But I'm a Dolphins fan. That's
he ain't going to go out that bad. But Patriots have Bill O'Brien. It's going to be make or break for their quarterback there. And what do you think?
I'm thinking the Miami Dolphins. I'm thinking the Jets. I'm thinking Buffalo. And then New England. I think Buffalo's taking a step back.
Wow.
I think they got some dissension in the house. Coming down.
Interesting. Well, that's some good football talking. For all you college football fans out there, if the first half of the season wasn't blowouts, then we might talk a little college football. But, you know, Georgia and all these teams, they don't have any meaningful games until about October. But we'll talk college football as we get a little bit closer. But, hey, let's segue to ministry, leadership, and sports. And, you know, we're always thinking and talking about things. And this question, it's kind of I've been racking my brain all day thinking about it. And so I'm really excited to see where you guys take it. And I think it will, even in my own brain, maybe open some doors that I hadn't considered. And so John, and both of you, John and Paul, y'all are readers and historians and very gifted in that. So I want to hear y'all first. John, here's the first question. I'm going to start with you. Where do you see the Western and American local church in 20 years? And when I say that, what does it look like? Full-time staff and pastors, assimilation, buildings, ministry, etc. 20 years from now, where do you see the Western American church?
Well, I think a couple of things just naturally true. People are moving into cities, and so I think 2036, I think, is the date projected that there'll be more people living in cities than rural areas for the first time in the history of the world, and so that's going to be a big shift across the world, in particular in the Western church. I don't in 20 years, I don't think we're going to see it die or flounder. I know a lot of people are hoping or thinking that that's going to be the case, where it's going to burn out. I think a lot of smaller churches are continued to shut down, going to be closing up as people move away from the area. Not even bad pastors, bad people. The specialization of the pastor is going to increase, and you're going to have maybe more larger churches, I believe, in the next 20 years than smaller churches, which is going to be hard for the American church in particular. And then I think the Western church is going to start being taught and picking up theology from the Southern Hemisphere, because you have that area of the world, especially among Africa and other places where you have the fastest growing churches in the world. They're going to start writing the theology books in the future. No one has to be really happy about it, but that's what happened in the U.S. from Europe to the U.S. and now it's moving down to the Southern Hemisphere. So I think you're going to start picking up on a lot of different theological thought that really hasn't encountered our world, because you have some animalistic spiritual warfare out in Africa, with witch doctors and tribal warfare, that the church leaders are going to not only write to their congregations and refuting those things, but we're going to hear a lot of that content for the first time, because that is not normative in our country and hasn't been for a couple hundred years. And so I think there's going to be some major shifts as far as staffing. As big churches seem to get bigger and budgets seem to get bigger, I think there's going to be less senior pastors, which is probably going to be okay, because I think there's less going into the seminary now than there have been. And you're going to pick up more specialized individuals that have niche ministries all along the way. And so I think it's going to look a little bit different than single pastor churches. Those still will exist, but those will be less and less as we go along. That's just my thoughts, what I'm seeing.
It's a lot of interesting stuff there. Paul, go ahead, and then we can once we all share, we can kind of chop it up and take pieces what each shared.
Yeah, sure. Man, I live in a pretty unique area. I mean, we're at literally the buckle of the Bible Belt. And so you've got a lot of, I mean, there's more per capita parachurch ministries that are in Chattanooga. There's more churches around this area than you can count at times. In Chattanooga, it's wild. And the same thing in Catoosa County, not so much for the parachurch ministry organizations, but certainly you have a lot of churches that are in the area. So I'll speak from the standpoint, I think, from Catoosa County over to Chattanooga, and maybe see what might or might not happen. I mean, we know that there are a lot of smaller churches in rural areas, and you have a lot of smaller churches that are in the surrounding area of Catoosa County. And, a lot of those people, call them mom and pop chapels, basically. You have a lot of families that are tied together in there that have been there for years. Whether it's because of financial reasons or whether through pure attrition, right, you're gonna end up seeing a lot of these churches just slowly close down because they can't keep up with things there. And so what you'll probably end up seeing in the next 20 years is you're going to see a lot of churches kind of, rather than shutting the doors down, they'll migrate together. And in fact, it just finished happening not too long ago with, a pastor friend of ours, Joseph, that went from one place where they were utilizing a building, and then another church, rather than just completely selling it and folding, they decided to say, hey, we're going to give you the property so that you can continue to have a place of ministry and continue to see this place flourish. And so they gladly got a chance to take it. They're renovating the whole thing, and they're going from that point, on. And then you have places that are just outright selling them. I mean, we just saw a church property go up for, $1.5 million, maybe 2 or 3 miles from the Chattanooga campus. And so I think in many ways, you're going to see some of this stuff where you're going to see churches slowly either coming together or just, going away, unfortunately. And so you're going to have a lot of change and turnover sometimes, I think, is what you're going to have. A lot of these para-church ministries that you have keystone people that have been a part of it, right? Like we had John Ankerberg here in Chattanooga as a staple. Well, I mean, that's slowly coming to a place where without John at the helm of that, I mean, it's not going to be the same thing. You have Kay Arthur that's been there at Precept Ministries for years, that's been around. I kind of wonder what'll happen the next 20 years with everything that's happening there at Precept. And that's not to say that somebody can't take it over and keep it going. But here in Chattanooga, you've had such key figureheads in some of these parachurch ministries and other churches that, you just, I frankly don't know, but at the same time, I kind of see a pattern of seeing either attrition happening or you just have a passing of the torch from one church to the other to say, hey, keep it going, because this is the only way that it can happen. But then again, last year, man, there were 5 church plants that happened in Chattanooga. So this place is wild, man. I don't know what may turn out when it comes to that. And then, all right, I'll just stop from there because there's more.
No, that's good. That's good. So, Dad, John kind of hit on the big city aspect. You're coming from Nashville, very metropolitan city, and a lot of commuter churches. And so 20 years from now, what are the tea leaves you're seeing?
Man, I wrestle with this. I thought a lot about this because I think it's a good question. But and also, I thought 20 years is really not that much time. Especially when you read scriptures. I mean, you read the Old Testament, man, it goes from 100 years to 500 years. And you even look at culture today. There wasn't a lot of change from the early 1900s all the way really until 1990, 2000. Then once the 2000, 1990, there became a change with the contemporary style church. So, 20 years is not that much of length. But 2 things that I see. I think law is going to be very interesting to see what happens with law. There's things going on in Canada right now that I can see migrating here to the United States. So I think that's going to weed out some biblical churches. I also think, and this may be, I hope it's not heresy. You guys will call me out, but I think you'll know where I'm coming from. I think with churches, I agree with John, but the size is different. I don't think that there's going to be a lot of large churches. I think there are going to be a lot of larger churches. So it seems like people are beginning to move away from what I mean by the larger churches, the 15,000, the 10. And I think you're going to have more churches, about 1,000, 800, 500, 3,000 would be the bigger churches, because the more and more I'm hearing from people, they like the community feel where they can know folks. And there's just that atmosphere. And I also think that the churches that I see that are dying have not been biblically based and culturally relevant. And that's the part, the heresy I'm talking about, but there's more of a joke, but I think it's more of, you start off with the foundation, because I'm seeing that churches that are growing through this are the ones that are preaching the word, period. And then in its own line item, understanding today's culture and trying to use wisdom to modify to be able to create the proper approach. I've seen some churches that are preaching the Bible, but the pride gets in, and they're not caring about culture change. And so everything that they're doing, their approach is old school, and they're dying. So I think you're going to have churches that continue to die, unfortunately, but I also think you're going to have other churches that continue to thrive. And it may not always be location based. I think you can be a church that, not thick rural, but 50 miles outside of a city that's doing well because they understand their surroundings. They preach God's word. People are always hungry for God's word spoken in truth, but then also people that are using wisdom to understand what's going on in today's culture. So I think you'll have much of the same, but I think styles will change. I think some churches will continue to die, And I think there's going to be a lot of churches that thrive. But I think you have more and more of what we call the mid-sized church, which, 1,000 below, and then the larger churches will be, anything 1,000 above.
When you said heresy, I think we all thought you were going to talk about churches
No,
with the women preachers, which is fine, which is something we'll talk about one day, just maybe not today. So a few thoughts. Dad, you were talking about, a lot can't change in 20 years. And I don't know, maybe I'm naive to the times, but I just feel like this whole AI.
I'm talking about big shifts. I'm talking big shifts.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think this whole digital AI thing is something to really watch. I mean, I think it could get real. You're starting to see like virtual churches and churches meeting in like AI reality and like, ooh, like, I'm all for spreading the gospel. You're starting to see some of that weirdness. And here's the reality. Like, I mean, if the government keeps going against the tide the church is going on, and say the church loses its 401(c) tax exempt status and pastors lose housing allowance and different things like that, the question is the church going to comp that? And, are we going to see, churches scale down their staff? And so that's interesting. I would really be curious to see, like, we're seeing we had Shane Pruitt and Scott Pace calling out the call to how the need for pastors is so high right now. And so where does that go? Does that trend shift? And, there's not enough pastors out there. When right now we're seeing the transition from the baby boomers to that next generation, and a lot of churches aren't really sure how to do that. That's something to watch. Something I think was real interesting, which, side note, Derwin Gray is going to be coming on in August with us, which is awesome, former pastor and NFL player. But he wrote a book, and he's kind of one of the forefronts on the multi-ethnic church. And so if you look at all the different, no borders and all these different immigrants coming into America, he kind of projects forward and says that we need to prepare for our churches to look more multi-ethnic, where a lot of us, maybe you come from a mostly, white church or whatever. And so that's fascinating. That's interesting, of opening up our mind to different cultures, and that presents its own set of challenges. And so at the end of the day, I think like churches are just going to have to continue to assimilate and disciple well, and the ones that do that will thrive. And so each of you pointed out a lot of interesting things. John, I thought that was fascinating, what you're saying about watching the trends and where the Lord's moving in some different places, but maybe they come from some different theological camps, and kind of opening your mind up, or having to address certain issues that that we didn't address before. And so definitely interesting to watch. Anybody have anything that anybody said that you want to go further on, or ask a follow-up question? No?
I feel like Joe said something that I was trying to remember now. And good night. Just like you, Joseph, I had one of those moments where I was like, man, at the time I was like, man, that's probably
got the DAC disease.
I think I do, man. I don't know what it.
Yeah,
I think speaking, like Paul, I know I lived there in Chattanooga for a while. We all did, and so it's a hub of sorts to begin to look at how does this begin to change, how does the fabric begin to break down. In that city in particular, you start to see large churches with multiple church locations that are maybe swallowing up some of those churches that are dying or closing their doors. But then our good friend Dave Wiley out west, where there's only 400 and something Southern Baptist churches in the entire state of Arizona. His ground looks way different, and so he would say smaller churches are really going to be the next church. 50 to 100, 150 people would be a good sized church out there. So it's going to look a lot different. He's in a large city, one of the fastest growing cities in America, and so you have a pretty unique demographic from one side of the nation to the other. We all live in that East Coast reality, and so I know we're more entrenched in that Bible Belt space, but I think it would be probably helpful to get a broader look across the nation to really kind of capture the image there.
Yeah.
Dad, you also said something about
different.
Go ahead, Paul.
I was just saying it's just different. It's just different locations that may have a different outcome in several years. But I did, if you don't mind, Joseph, I did remember what I was gonna talk through, which was what Joe was talking about how to be effective with how you're communicating to other people that may be darkening the doors of a church. and mind you, and I get it. I understand that, our primary audience on Sunday morning is to preach to the saints that are in the room and to edify them and to build them up. And, Ephesians 4, right? Like it's there. I mean, our job is to preach truth and all that. But I think there's something to be said about how we need to be able to be careful to learn how to talk to people and to understand the narratives that are being espoused, that oftentimes, what's needed at those moments is clarity with truth to say, okay, how does the gospel reshape the way I should look at that? Because people are getting shaped by something all the time. They're getting something that's being said to them on a regular basis, and it becomes the narrative in their mind to say that it's okay. And there's been one that's been said for a long, long time. Well, if two people love each other, why can't they just have sex and it'll be fine, right? And then now it's even more ambiguous, right? Because it's just like who cares who the two people are, whether they are male or female, whether the one espouses to be a woman but it's not a woman but it's a male, like that whole mix up. But they love each other. Well, that's a narrative, and we can go off on a lot of different ways of how we can address that through the means of the gospel and what the truth of God's word says, right? Especially the design of God and how he made the home, how he created humanity, all of that kind of stuff, right? And so I think we just need to be very careful of how to listen well and then be able to talk well with truth, and how the gospel can repair and reshape the way that people need to be thinking. I mean, it's what happened to us when we got saved, right? I mean, and so I think there's something to be said to be very mindful of how we're able to do that. And I think there are a lot of churches around, at least my area, Joe, where it's not that they're trying to do it because they don't want to do it. It's because they're working off of the toolbox that they've been given, right? And it was Pastor so-and-so that taught brother so-and-so, and now brother so-and-so is preaching now, but dude has no seminary training, but he knows everything that his former pastor told him. And it's just, you could almost as a congregant know what the schedule of the sermon series are going to be that year, because it never changes. It's the same stuff that he's going to be preaching on. And God forbid if you don't preach on the Revelations, because that's just part of the staple calendar of what you need to be preaching on a regular basis. And that's it. That's all you always get. You know what I mean? And so that gets very old very quickly when you're not addressing things that are the narratives, or even for your own people, because you're like, man, we've been hearing the same thing for the last, and you guys get what I'm saying. Yeah, we need to preach the truth all the time, and the gospel is going to be the same. That's not going to change, but you get what I'm saying. There's no whole counsel of God's word. That's what I mean by the same.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's all I was going to say.
All right. I'm going to shift to our last question, and I'm going to throw you guys a curveball. When I say this, don't freak out because we didn't talk about this, but I feel like I know each of you well enough, and I feel like we can have a wise and productive discussion around this, because we've been kind of wanting to talk about this, because I feel like as things are going around in culture and church culture, like we got to speak on it. Like I don't want to be afraid to talk about things. So, Dad, I'll start with you here, and we'll kind of pass it around. A lot of people are real curious right now. It's no secret that the SBC, put out some churches that had women pastors and different things like this. And as we're talking about the future of the church, you're seeing an influx of women preachers. And is there a separation between elder and pastor and preacher and splitting hairs? And each of you are going to come from this at a different angle. Like I can already tell you, and John and Paul are the type of people that you guys are well versed in this. So whenever I pass it around to you, I'd like for you to talk about like, okay, is a pastor, a preacher, is an elder, is a this, and kind of take them behind the curtain of like why this is a big deal, or is this a big deal biblically? How should we think about this moving forward? Like, I feel like a lot of people are kind of afraid to talk about it. We could talk about it in a very open, like not condemning way, but just, this is what scripture says, and this is kind of what our approach is. But Dad, I want to start with you first to kind of set the tone for the conversation. I think we all agree that, men are called to be elders or pastors, etc. But there's so much more that women can do for the church, and they are such a tool. And if you look at the New Testament church, they are one of the big anchors that the church is built up on. So what would your encouragement be to women out there who are leaders, who are leading in their church, that are hearing a lot of this and maybe even feel called to ministry, but they're trying to parcel through this, or to the Christian out there, like, hey, is this a big deal? Like, what should my perspective? Obviously, we want to speak with a positive tone here. Where would you take that talk?
Well, first of all, one of the greatest heroes in the Old New Testament is Mary Magdalene. And so I've done a study on her and have preached on her twice since I've been at our church. And you talk about a warrior champion for the Lord, and had a huge impact on everything that happened. Because, you know, a lot of times you hear about the disciples, but all the work behind the scenes and all the money that was raised to fund the ministry came from Mary and her small group. As a matter of fact, if you read it real carefully and slowly, they're all named there. And so they were champions for the Lord. And for some reason, you know, you think that the ultimate leader is where everybody wants to go. And, you know, if you think about even God, you have God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Jesus is called the Son of God. And so automatically you just think, well, you know, God the Father, he's the ultimate the leader. And if you notice that he always says, look, whatever the Father says. However, we also know that the Father is the leader, but we also know that they're all on equal grounds. So so somewhere down the line, people have gotten to the point where roles equal better than. And so we got to get to that point where that's not the case. We all have responsibilities. We all have gifts. Follow your gifts and allow the Lord to direct your ministry. Because at the end of the day, it's God's ministry. It's not ours. We're all a part of the church. We all have our gifts. We're all part of the body. Christ is the head, and we're all followers. And so if we just take, you know, our leadership from Jesus, find our gifts, find our roles, we all have a seat at the table. I think we're going to be fine. But, you know, I think what hurts too is sometimes when we do teach on this, or maybe in the past, I think it was taught a little domineering. I'm going to be careful of that, but just kind of some of the stuff that I've seen way in the past. And so there's other things going on in the world. And so it's just, you know, in the church, there's no second rate. There's no lesser person. We all have our roles that God gave us, and, you know, let's do it, and let's serve God and serve the church, because there's people in need.
So
that's just a quick thought.
Yeah, no. That's a good quick thought. And let me also say this for anybody out there. This is coming from four guys who, Michelle is a super awesome ministry leader, pastor's wife. Kay, who I saw today, is an awesome ministry pastor's wife. My mom is a awesome, like, just boss charge. My wife, super plugged in. So we are as pro women in ministry as anybody can get. So I just want to set that there. Paul, I'm going to ask you and John take this in different directions, because Paul, you and I have talked a little bit about, like, there are these terms complementarianism and what does that mean, and what's a good perspective of it for those out there. But John, I want to pass it to you first, because there's a little confusion where people be like, okay, we see the gifts given in Ephesians, gift of evangelist, gift of prophet, gift of pastor. So people have taken that, but then they're like, okay, but we see Paul's letters, and okay, we see that only men are qualified to be elders. So now there's some churches that are like, well, you can be, only men can be elders, but you can be a woman and be an ordained pastor. And there's some confusion here of separation of office and function. Can you give us a historical, biblical perspective on that?
Yeah, I think, and I'm no expert, so to speak, on all things historical when it comes to the word. But looking at it, it's pretty clear the pastor, overseer, elder, shepherd, synonymous term used interchangeably, like many of our terms are used interchangeably. And you're looking at the kind of build out from that. Well, can you exercise authority? Some people exercise authority and some don't. Then you get into some other denominational aspects. So we're talking SBC in specific right here, because it's a buzz. We're not talking about ruling elders or something else that have authority. So I mean, clearly it's a role that's been set apart by God, by design, to lend on a man to lead and shepherd and care. And we could go into a lot of the practical aspects of it. But one of the things I'm really concerned about is the people that are championing the other way, that are talking about Well, that's just because it was built and it was written in a patriarchal society and all this stuff. And what they're saying is because of the culture there, they only wrote about it this way. But what that really means is the word of God is not timeless. It's not eternal. God wrote it for that specific people, and we're just learning from them. He didn't write it for us as well. And that's a very dangerous path to get down. That's the most alarming thing that I keep continuing to read. It's like, well, I know what you think you're saying. Oh, well, our society is different. We know better, whatever the term is, the great fallacy of the modern mind. But at the same time, you're looking at it, you're like, God anticipated and knew about our churches, about our leadership, about the Southern Baptist. He's all knowing. So you got to have this reality that he wrote it the way he intended to write it, to reveal what he intended to reveal. And we are either going to submit to it as true and authoritative in our lives, or we're going to say we got a better plan or we got a better amendment to this. Now, specifically within that, yeah, I mean, there's a great gifting for women to serve the church. There's no doubt about it. And I think in most churches, the women population by majority really is growing exponentially. Which probably says more about our culture and other things than it does about our interpretation of God's word. Right. But to say that I must be able to hold this position to function efficiently and effectively in ministry would be something that even Moses wouldn't subscribe to, right? Mm-hmm. Like he's tasked with a leadership burden and he goes, I don't really talk that great, right? Like the reluctant leader, like, it's not me. That's not me. And what you do is you see God use this man to lead the largest people group that anyone's ever led through the most difficult season of life based on their experiences and wrestles at an age in his life when most other people are hanging things up. And what God says about him is he's the most humble person on the face of the planet. And you say, man, how does one of the greatest leaders that we have in God's word also be connected to the most humble person in all the world? I think it's because the leadership model for us has shifted in such a way that the guy or person that we see on stage is the boss, and his gifting, his charisma, his activity, his whatever is really what allows him to be on stage, and not because God has drawn him to this role. He's aspired to that role. He's had biblical training towards that. He's had other men invest in his life, and he's walking through this, I think, with the same kind of expectation and humility that any other person on the planet would have to exhibit to be able to lead through that. And to be honest with you, and this is just for the guys listening, the largest plane is flying over my head right now. Just give me 1 second.
You're fine. I can cut it out.
Welcome to Beach Life. For the guys listening, we just got to stop letting guys just blow it in ministry on the largest scales, right? Like, stop shooting yourself in the foot. If you want to be a man of God that people want to follow, then be that man on the stage and off the stage. Mm-hmm. I know it's hard. I'm not saying it in like a rah-rah punch you in the face. What I'm saying is, don't step onto the stage. If you're off the stage, you're floundering in your holiness, you're struggling and persevering and pursuing the Lord, and stop putting the most skilled people or the more charismatic people on the stage that draw a crowd, and look for people who are faithful, people that are humble, people that are holy, people that want to pursue Christ and see other people, and look for pastors and not talking heads. And I think that also is a part of the reality is you're seeing some ladies going, I could do just as well as what I'm seeing.
Or I'm living a holy life. You know, I'm living in holiness, and you're over here floundering in sin. You know, so no, that's really good, Paul.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you know, for me, I would categorize myself as a caring / comfortable complementarian. I mean, that's just kind of where I'm at.
Can you briefly explain that in short for people that hear that term?
Yeah.
What that means?
Yeah. So, you know, for me, let me start from the beginning, right? So caring, like I'm not some, authoritarian pastor that wants to just kind of bury my knuckles down and, it's my way, the highway kind of thing. That's not how that's not how, one, I am, and two, that's just not what pastors are called to do. Pastors are called to serve the flock that God has asked him to care for, right? He's an under shepherd, not the shepherd. And so for one, it's like you gotta understand that your role as a leader is not one to just, be a bully. That's not the intended purpose of it whatsoever at all. In fact, if that's the aim, which we all understand what some of the greatest struggles for men are, right? It's pride, it's power, and it's sex. And so if you're going into it with the opportunity to be able to say, here's how I'm going to leverage my authority, you got to step out of the way and not do that. But if you're looking at it for how I can care for people and love people and serve people, hey, you're heading in the right direction. So I'm a caring complementarian. I'm a comfortable one. And the fact that I'm very okay with being a complementarian, because I believe that that's what the Bible speaks of, and I'm not shifting on that kind of thing. But before I get to defining complementarian, right, the other thing to keep in mind is, like, I don't think that every egalitarian is some liberal, right? Like that's not the case, because for one, this is not a first tier issue that we're going to start dividing ourselves to the place where it's like, okay, you have to be an egalitarian to be a Christian. Well, that's baloney. That's not in the Bible, right? You can't go. It is a secondary issue. And that's not to say that it's not important. It's important, because it's important enough for people to say, you know what, this is not the church that I want to be at. Well, that's fine, but just know I'm comfortably a complementarian. Like, that's not gonna change. And especially for Southern Baptists, this is nothing new. This is something that's been in the Baptist faith and message for years now. And so, we're not going to kind of shift on something that we've said this is what we're going to agree upon, right? Anyway, but complementarian, if I had to boil it down, like I believe that men and women are created with equal worth, dignity, right, and value, right? And my wife is not any less than me. She is an image bearer of God, and God made her that way. And so therefore she doesn't have any less dignity, doesn't have any less worth, which means that, her words mean something to me. The words of the ladies within our church should mean something to us. Their presence, their service, all of those things mean something to all of us. Now, just because we believe in a biblical complementarianism doesn't necessarily mean that paves the path for an office that God has specifically said, this is the way that I've designed that office. In the same way that we can't reshape the home just because we feel like we can reshape it. God gave a head, and that head is, the husband of that household. And so, it's one of those things where it's like, we can't, just because we know that we can give value, dignity, and worth to every person that way, it doesn't necessarily mean we can start changing the way God designed the church. That's not how it works. He's the author of it. He's the institutor of it, and he's going to create it that way. Now, what's interesting is that every comfortable complementary woman that I've talked to doesn't want to aspire to be a pastor. Mm-hmm. Just don't. Like, and I've got some really gifted ladies in our church, and God bless them for all of them. I am a better pastor today because of their giftedness. And one of those people is my wife. I mean, she is truly a helpmeet to me. I mean, she is. I'm a better preacher. I'm a better pastor. I'm a better leader because of my wife. And mind you, my wife's got a master's of arts in strategic leadership. Okay. So, I mean, I'm all for it. And she leads our kids ministry. She leads our events. She leads a bunch of stuff within the church. And I'm not going to diminish the fact that she has giftings of leadership. She does. She's a great leader. She's a great organizer. She pulls more people. People are like, we'll take Paul for preaching, but anything else, whatever, you know what I'm saying? But like, she's phenomenal at all of those things. And so for me, like I said, I think anybody who begins to look at the biblical pattern of what God has designed, you don't see a pattern of shepherds in that way where you find somebody aspiring to that office that's a woman. It's not biblically there. I think you can trace it from the beginning all the way through the New Testament. And then when Paul's writing the pastoral epistles, I mean, I think we need to be very mindful of who he's writing to and who he's appointing as pastors. I mean, you can't make a big leap and say, well, he was talking about also including women in pastorship. You don't find that in the pastoral epistles. I mean, it's not there. And a normal, natural, logical reading of those letters doesn't lead you to that conclusion. So I don't know if that helps or not.
That's great. That's
Hey,
great.
Hey, Joseph.
Yeah.
One of the easiest and clearest way I've heard it state, in God's kingdom, there's roles, not rank. And I think that's so true. And it really starts even within the Godhead. And, you know, going back to Mary Magdalene, as impactful as she was in the ministry, she was the first one to see Jesus resurrected. And she did so much behind the scenes and from the scenes, leading the women's group. But at the end of the day, when they had the 12 apostles, it was men. And those things matter. And so we all have our part in the church. We all have our gifts, but at the end of the day, it's roles, not rank. And so I think that's what matters most. And in the world today, it's more about rank, and then the roles follow.
Yeah, I think that, in short, I think the only thing that just makes me a little uncomfortable is we're having all these discussions about feminism, and like Paul was talking about the nuclear family being attacked. So why now are we having to have that discussion about inside the church? But Dad, when you say that about Mary Magdalene, are you saying that she was the first one to deliver a message to the disciples post-resurrection as a preacher or sermon?
She was the first one to go tell them about.
Hey, we'll
continue about the risen Christ.
Yep. Hey, well, we'll continue this next time. We'll dive a little bit deeper, but good talk. I appreciate it. We'll see you in a few weeks, and y'all have a great day.